Payton Pritchard is a super fun player to watch and emulate and has been for years. But this season, it's really coming to light. He's got a really intriguing mix between deploying elite craftiness and then an ability to keep the game simple, both of which help him make up for a lack of height as well as athleticism. Although I definitely consider him athletic in different ways. And while it's clearly taken him years and years of work to get here, all of these techniques we'll discuss are ways that you can study, learn from, and apply to help you score on bigger players and compete on the biggest stages. Let's get it. So first off, let's check out his attacking and finishing ability. And shooting 65% at the rim at his stature is crazy. And to me, a lot of what this comes down to is his ability to get to 2 feet and working creatively from there. Sometimes this will be more in stride like this, mainly in the form of extension finishes where he rotates to get his numbers to the sideline and create max distance from his defender. And although it's definitely not easy to coordinate everything for a smooth 2-foot finish, he has great timing even off the catch or off a tough move to fluidly gather and get into a smooth 1-2 jump.
Don't forget, Dallas has been very good.
And Payton Pritchard, so maybe they want to challenge.
Most times though, you'll actually see him come to a full stop, which is quite rare in the NBA where 1-foot finishing definitely takes precedent. So this throws defenders off big time, especially considering how he uses this so unpredictably. Sometimes he'll wait for a second, pivot out of it, fake, and use it patiently, which works well of course. But other times, as soon as he stops, he's straight up into the layup, which is really tough to time up.
Kind of a calendar of events.
Then when he does go off 1 foot, it's mainly when he has a pretty good advantage on his defender. Either he's already in front and he trusts that he has enough space, so he just keeps his speed going, or he has a speed advantage and knows that getting to 2 feet would slow him down too much. So like here for example, since he's in full stride and the defender is still turning and recovering, he gets the feel that he'll be able to get up quickly and release it off one before they're able to get to it. But even still, he uses these with just as much unpredictability. Whether it's using the off foot to jump, his eyes to look off or down at the floor until he quickly pops into it so he doesn't telegraph it, or different ball paths and release points like this. He makes these super tough to block. You also notice that he doesn't shoot floaters much at all, and actually only made 3 all of last season, which at first is a bit weird considering he's not the type to just go up and use athleticism on shot blockers every time, until you realize he's mastered an alternative to floaters: short jumpers. And one of the big reasons why this is so effective is because if you think about it, players very rarely stop around this area. They're 95% of the time going to get all the way to the rim, so if you do pull back around this area, it's super tough to anticipate.
Pritchard on the drive, pulls up, jump shot.
Other times you'll see him kind of stop his momentum a bit, so this defender ends up flat-footed, which then lets him pop up right into the air and get enough of a step on that defensive player. And if you combine this with a bump to get that defender's momentum backwards, there's literally no way to recover from that. It's almost like a step back. Well, I mean, it is, but one where you have a ton of momentum to bump with. And the defender's out of control because they think you're getting to the rim, and once you step back, you're basically shooting a form shot. Not a bad option. And again, this is also a great option if you do have a full advantage on that first defender, so usually you'd be able to just make a layup here. But this big steps up in that next layer, and you want to avoid going up athletically with them. But this takes insane deceleration ability, and you'll see Pritchard literally be at 100% speed and fully stop on the dime, and then transfer his momentum upwards. That's elite. And as I've mentioned in past videos, one of the best pluses to these is that there's a lot of room for error, meaning you can shoot these from tougher foot positions, fading, with different arcs, etc. And you have a much higher chance to make these in a deep 3 with the same shot. And probably a floater too, because at the end of the day, this is still a jumper which most hoopers have worked on thousands of times, if not millions. Also notice how off the dribble, he's great at taking more dribbles when needed and less dribbles other times. He constantly goes between these floats, and then quick sequence dribbles like these to throw off a defender's rhythm and quickly respond to how they play them. And this takes serious ball control. So here, he uses 1 dribble to cover a ton of ground, so he's using less dribbles to put pressure on his defender. And then as he gets closer, he uses these quick 2 dribbles in a super short amount of space to time up his finish and give him more options. He also uses his speed to create momentum advantages on defenders very well. Or in other words, finds times in the game where he can really put pressure on an initial defender by getting ahead of steam. As soon as he identifies one of these opportunities and a relatively empty second and third layer, his first few steps off a slower paced dribble are insanely fast and it's tough to stop. And with this, sometimes he'll stay with you by cutting you off and getting a chest stop. And this is usually the most dangerous part of doing this. But Pritchard is great at being able to lift up with his torso a bit, position the ball away, and decelerate to protect the ball. And one thing I want to point out is that guys like Pritchard who effectively dance with their dribble always have their defenders a bit behind, with much of this coming from a speed advantage. So what that looks like is this, where he uses a simple, powerful rip through to get an advantage. So now on the snatch, the defender's a bit out of position, which makes him overcompensate on this next between. So again, he overcompensates on this lateral glide, which opens up this spin and makes it easier to bump him since he's still recovering. These aren't just pointless moves, and if he didn't first create this simple advantage with his speed, this would be tough to do. He also relentlessly creates contact with defenders and with tight angles, and he's really one of the best I've ever seen at getting fully in front of his defender. He's gotten to the point where it looks like an effortless bump on his part, but the defender could go flying from it. And that most times comes down to timing, so hitting them in stride, as well as leverage, hitting them from a lower position so they kind of pop up into the air and he's able to stay more compact. Notice too that he has enough control to maintain balance even when really leaning into the defender. And being able to actually finish from these requires you to be super quick off the ground after the bump to get up well before the defender can recover from this. So as soon as he bumps and this defender's on their heels, he's already up into it. And speaking of contact, he operates incredibly well in tight spaces. So this is partially his maneuverability or comfort making these super sharp turns and spins, and also these compact dribbles, where he'll protect the ball and quickly change direction with these kind of low tap dribbles. He also plays at a very low level in general, which in turn helps him create contact easier, as I mentioned, but also sneak around hips and speed up his handle a bit. Pritchard is known for having one of the faster handles we've ever seen. When you combine this with the lower level that he plays at, part of this is also, since there's less space for the dribble to cover from one hand to the other, that dribble does get there quickly. And this speedy, aggressive dribble can get defenders feeling like they're behind because they both perceive the first step is faster, and of course it can limit the delay between dribble and first step, and this gets defenders biting.
We're trying to develop.
And lastly, I guess kind of under this topic, is that he averaged almost an offensive rebound per game last year, which doesn't sound like much, but when you think about it, that's a bench point guard coming off and giving you an extra possession and often extra 2 points, as well as some energy every single game, and that adds up.
3 for Miami. Back comes Hauser for an answer. Doesn't get the bounce. That's Pritchard in fighting for the rebound, and the shortest man.
Now let's quickly talk about his perimeter game as well. Most of us see a point guard and assume they're going super ball screen heavy. But Pritchard is the perfect example of a guy who can do that and does do it, but also realizes that if he's going to get meaningful minutes with superstar level guys, he's going to have to play off the catch even more than ball screens or ISOs. If you're a point guard who wants to play at a high level with better players, learn to play off the catch, learn to move off ball and knock down catch and shoot shots. Which sounds simple, but it's actually way more rare than you would think. So this year, he's getting more minutes with that first unit, and as a result, he isn't going with as many ball screens. But that's part of what happens. Each time you go up in a level, you get more minutes, you have to play a more specific, constrained role, and he's doing that super well. And what most people don't realize is that playing off the catch often makes it easier to kill defenders with your handle, because you'll create scrambling, closing out defenders, and mismatches with bigs being forced to rotate out on you.
On the glass. Pritchard working against Lillard. Pritchard got it to fall.
Now one thing you'll see him do a lot off the ball is start by getting by his defender, but then kicking to the perimeter and relocating for a 3-ball. So often when you pass the ball, defenders completely forget about you, and popping right back out to open space can get you wide open 3-balls. So in a weird way, getting downhill can help you get better catch and shoot looks from 3. But you got to be diligent enough to get there. He also shoots almost the same percentage on contested and uncontested shots, which is crazy but necessary for a guy like Pritchard who's a bit shorter and consistently has super hard closeouts coming his way. And the reason why continuing to shoot defended threes in practice is vital. Obviously he can shoot it from super deep as well, which helps him bring more gravity towards him, further out from the rim, and he's able to shoot when cold too. You'll consistently see him shooting his first shot off the bench super assertively, making it, which is somebody trying to work your way up from the bench ranks is necessary. And again, a lot of this comes down to his training, and everyone knows he's an incredibly hard worker, and he's talked a little bit about what he's done the last few summers.
Like 300, 400, maybe 500 possessions of for me live. So you were talking about a bag. I actually, basketball, I feel like I can have a live defender, having people just to spar with. And it's different when you have a live defender. As much as I could practice a move, my body movement might be different when I'm feeling the momentum of him and the contact and like the angles change slightly. You know what I mean? So I always do that now.
And although this isn't all of training, this game's approach is something that's incredibly important for hoopers of every level, and it's something I've seen insane results with over the course of my coaching career. And it partially explains why he's been able to improve so much and develop such an uncanny feel for the game. And by the way, the Celtics in general are huge on the game's approach, and if you look at the results both as a team and players improving individually, you can see its effect. It's proven. So get to it. Anyways, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments who you want to see next or what concept you want to see next, and I'll make sure to get to it.